Have you ever dreaded going to a networking event because a part of you felt like you were failing and you didn't want to expose yourself? Maybe you were laid off, maybe you were terminated, maybe your business isn't growing the way that you hoped that it would. Or maybe you're in a season where you're constantly asking God, like, what's next? Like, what are we doing here? You look around and you assume that everyone else has it all figured out. Meanwhile, you're the only one trying to piece back together a career. If you've ever felt that way, then this episode is specially for you. Dear ProFAITHsional, this podcast is to share God's favor over your work life while I offer you a professional favor. Although faith without works is dead, sometimes we do our job and work without faith. So I wish to inspire, motivate, and encourage us to grow our faith in our job and work environment. So thanks for listening. Today I want to talk about something that I experienced right before and during attending or during Black Tech Week. And so I had recently been terminated from my job, and I realized something that completely changed how I approached the conference. So let me tell you, Black Tech Week happens the second week in July on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And the Friday immediately before it, I received notification that my employer decided to part ways. We'll talk about that another time. And to my previous employer, if you are watching or listening, don't worry, I can be gracious. Well, I'm always open to opportunities that benefit me. Prior to the termination, I was open to network for the sake of finding organizations that could have synergy with my role. However, in light of the termination, I was now hyper-focused on identifying new employment opportunities, like for real. So now I needed a new strategy. And so now I had to brush off my resume and prepare as an unemployed individual. But I realized something, that just because you experience a setback, that doesn't mean that you should walk into a room with a failure identity. Those are two very completely different things. I had every reason to walk into Black Tech Week feeling defeated, questioning my value, and wondering how people would actually perceive me. And then I realized I had a choice. Like, I could either allow one chapter, like one little part of the story, a minuscule part, define the entire narrative, or two, I could walk into the room remembering everything God had already done in my life and career. I chose number two. That's the choice all of us have during seasons of transition. And that brings me to point number one. Everyone understands a transition. One of the biggest things I learned at Black Tech Week is that almost everyone is navigating a transition. Some people are launching companies, building from the ground up. That's a transition. Some people are looking for investors. They're looking to grow their business. That's a transition. Let's see. Some are changing careers. They're trying to go from point A to point B, C, D, E, F, G, what, you name it. That's a transition. Some are trying to get promoted. They're trying to level up their careers. That's also a transition. Some are recovering from businesses that failed. That's a transition. And some are quietly wondering, like, what's next. That's a transition that's brewing, my friend. So please know that a transition isn't something to be ashamed of. It's just part of growth. The difference is whether you approach it with hope or with defeat. Even when a transition is inevitable or not desired, like undesirable, you decide how to approach it. And your approach really determines whether you attract or repel people and opportunities. People are naturally attracted to hope, and as cliche as it may sound, they are attracted to positivity. One of the themes that keeps recurring in this season of my life is that people want to work with winners. So in a transition, you have to focus on how to show up as a winner. So that brings me to point number two. Be comfortable talking about your wins. One thing that I intentionally practiced before attending the conference was walking or talking about my accomplishments. Not because I wanted to make myself feel better, although I needed it, but because I needed to remember who I was and what I do best. Sometimes we're so focused on what we've lost that we forget everything we've built. In the midst of your loss, your experience still matters. In the midst of your loss, the problems you have solved, they still matter. In the midst of your loss, the people that you've impacted, they still matter. In the midst of your loss, the systems that you've improved, the teams that you've led, the relationships that you have built, none of that disappeared just because one organization decided to move in a different direction. In the midst of loss, you must revisit your wins. So if this is a season of winning for you, We're happy for you. Record every win. But if you're the person who feels like you're losing right now, then let's explore your past successes. I can help you with that. Some might even say that I'm a little magical when it comes to helping others do that. Remember this: one employer doesn't determine your value. So don't make the mistake of thinking that you are what you do. Your value is not in the what. Consider this. Maybe many people can be trained to do what you do. But what really makes you different, stand out, is how you do it. And so your value is intrinsic to you, not to the work that you do. So if your employer changes, your value stays with you. Your value is not set or owned by your employer. And while you think about your value and your wins, consider point number 3. Know your magic. One of the things that I had to get comfortable at Black Tech Week was talking about my magic. I had never talked or thought about myself in that light, but the very first day of Black Tech Week, I experienced something kind of magical, and since then I've gotten real comfortable talking about my own magic. I've shared on my social accounts how I got backstage to record a podcast episode at Black Tech Week, and that was not the magic. The magic was the pixie dust that I spread over someone else's shining moment. That's what opened an opportunity for me. So allow me to ask you, what shifts when you show up on a scene? I dare say that this is your magic. Some people like to point out this question, like, what do people constantly thank you for? It's not your job title. Chances are it's not your position, not even the company name that you put on your LinkedIn profile. What is the value that you naturally create wherever you go? For me, I know my gift is helping people connect ideas, strategies, technology, and purpose. I help organizations communicate more effectively, solve problems, build systems that help people thrive. That's true whether I'm employed or not by someone else or building my own business. See, your title may change, your assignment may change, but your gifts, they travel with you, they stay with you, and that's your magic. You have to know it, you have to own it, you have to be willing to talk about it. And as you're getting comfortable talking about your own magic, you need to accept point number 4. It's okay to edit your story. Because my termination was so sudden and unexpected, I think I experienced a little professional whiplash going into the event. And because I am not a good liar, like, I had to find the truest parts of my story to share without focusing on the termination. And as I was introducing myself, I found myself saying to some people, like, I am editing in real time. Like, I said those words. One question people like to ask at conferences like this is, so what do you do? Sometimes we may panic because we don't have like the perfect answer, or we haven't like practiced what we're going to reply, right? So here's the truth. You're allowed to edit your story in real time. You don't have to pretend like you figured everything out. You can honestly say something like, I am in a season of transition. Another good one is, I am exploring where I create the greatest impact. Or how about like, I'm building what's next? Like, none of those point to weaknesses. They're actually just honest. And here's another truth. Most people are doing exactly the same thing. They're trying to figure out the next step just like you are. And I want to encourage you to be okay doing the same. We live in a world that fully embraces editing. So much of what we see and hear in media is edited, but we tend to focus on the final products. Rarely do we sit with the joy of editing. With our work, we may be tempted to do the same. We may not want to share the unfinished process. For a long time, I have been that person. Even me recording this episode now is showing editing in real time. Normally, I share things months after they have happened, or I have had time to process. And to be honest, I decided to share this now because I listened to Vice Mayor of Cincinnati say that as leaders, we have to get comfortable sharing the things that we are experiencing as they happen in real time. We need to demystify so much, and that's why I'm like now having this conversation with you, but let's not digress. Point number 5 is to focus on what's still good. One of the most important mindset shifts is asking, what is the most positive thing about this situation? Not because you're ignoring the pain, but because what you focus on shapes how you show up. Maybe this season has given you clarity. Maybe you've discovered strengths that you didn't know that you had. Or maybe you've finally found the courage to pursue something that you've been putting off. Maybe you've realized like that your identity was tied a little too close to your job title. And that realization is awesome. All of those are good things. So whatever it is, find the good. People are naturally drawn to hope. not that fake positivity. Real hope is what people kind of like crave. When you carry hope, you become someone who attracts opportunities instead of unintentionally pushing them away through your discouragement. Negativity repels people and opportunities, but your hopeful glow is one of the most attractive qualities that you can project onto others. It's not about being the smartest person in the room, like give that up. It's not about looking your best. Don't try to show up like perfectly either. It's about bringing confidence, purpose, curiosity, and hope into every conversation that you have. And now, allow me to bring you to a biblical reflection. As I reflected on this experience, I kept coming back to Proverbs 24:16. For though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again. But the wicked, they stumble when calamity strikes. I love this verse because it doesn't say that the righteous never fall. It actually assumes that they will. Following Christ doesn't exempt us from discouragement. Faith doesn't even guarantee that every interview is going to turn into a job offer. Like, it doesn't. It doesn't promise that every business is going to succeed or that every employer is going to recognize your value. But what it does promise is that your story doesn't end with the fall. The distinguishing characteristic of the righteous isn't perfection, it's perseverance. Maybe your fall was losing a job. Maybe your fall was a failed business. Maybe your fall was, I don't know, a dream that didn't unfold the way that you imagined. Whatever your fall is, don't confuse your circumstances with your identity. When I walked into Black Tech Week, I could have introduced myself as someone who had just been terminated, like I was like unemployed. Instead, I chose to walk in as someone who was getting back up. That's what righteous people do. They rise up and they do it again and again and again and again and again and again and again. So, here are just a few final thoughts to like really wrap this up. Before your next networking event, conference, or interview, I want to challenge you. Write down your wins. Like maybe pick 5 and just write those down. Write down the value that you consistently bring to other people. Remember what makes you unique. Walk into the room knowing your identity is rooted in Christ, not in your current employment status. Your job may have ended, your business may have failed, but your purpose, it didn't. And remember this, your fall may explain where you've been, like the things that you've done, but your willingness to get back up, it's going to reveal who you're trying to become. So thank you for listening to ProFAITHsional Favor. If this episode encouraged you in any way, share with someone who is maybe walking through a season of transition. And may you continue to experience God's favor over your work life as you faithfully steward every opportunity He places before you. Until next time, bye-bye.